preceded Islam. Pagans believed in it. Some people of the book, specifically the Jews during that time, they believed in it. And then it creeped into Islam. Slowly came into Islam. And it emerged during the time of Bani Umayyah and evolved during the time of Bani al-Abbas. And every caliph was supportive of this idea. Why? Because when Yazid was asked, why did you murder Imam Hussein? He said, it's not me. This is the predestination of God. This is exactly what he said to Imam Zain al-Abidin in Damascus. Yazid, this is exactly what he said to Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein, Zain al-Abidin, in his courtyard in Damascus. He said, it was God, it wasn't me who murdered your father. This was the will of God. God murdered him, not me. Before him, his father Muawiyah, when he appointed his son as a crown prince, his son Yazid, many people rejected that. Many people in the Sunni establishment. One of them is Lady Aisha. She said, Muawiyah, this is not good. We could hardly recognize you as a caliph. Now you want your son Yazid, this corrupt person, licentious person, to be a successor, Amir al-Mu'mineen. What did he say? He gave an answer, short answer. He said, this is the will of God.
Subhanallah.
He attributes this to God. Jabr, determinism. This is the will of God, not mine. I have no role in it. Don't argue with me. Go and argue with God. So the political establishment until today, my friend, until today, if you tell them, why do you bomb this country? Why do you have embargo on that country? Why do you torture? Why do you do this? Why do you kidnap someone and burn him alive? They say this is the will of God. We have no role in that. This is what God wants us to do. We are mujbareen. We have been coerced to do that. Many times when you have argument with their scholars, they say everything we do is by God's commands. Because God says it, and they use the Quran, by the way, they use the Quran, but they misinterpret the Quran. They say God says in His book, وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. God created you and He created your deeds with you. But created your deeds did not mean God forced you to murder, to commit sin. God gave you freedom of choice. Because anything happens in this life with His energy, with His permission. It's like a father who gives money to his son. The money is from the father, but the decision how to spend that money is with the son. If the son buys the drugs with that, he cannot say, this is my father. He does not blame his father. The father gave you the money, but he did not tell you buy drugs with it. He wants you to buy food. This is your decision. Don't blame it on your father. Bani Umayyah blamed every crime that they committed on God. Okay? So this is the first group who believe that anything that happens in my life, anything, I have no control over it. It has been premeditated, pre-planned, imposed upon me. I come into this life and leave after 70, 80, 90 years without the freedom of choice, without the free will. I'm an executor of God's will. I'm like a machine, a robot. I have no freedom of choice, which is utterly wrong. Utterly wrong. That compromises what? God's justice. If God creates someone and He says to him, hey, whatever you do, even if you go and pray and go, and there are hadith, my friends, the time is limited. I can't bring the books to show you the hadith. One of these hadiths that attributed falsely to the Prophet, that if someone, God wants him to go to hellfire, if that person spends his entire life worshipping God, dedicating himself to God, doing everything righteously, God still can take him on the day of judgment to the hellfire. Because God is the king, the super king. And we cannot question God. And on the other hand, if someone spent his entire life in corruption, his entire life in fasad, in destruction, God can take him to the paradise. It's up to him. Paradise and hellfire belongs to God. That does not make sense. God is the one who established justice. God is just. And God himself, he says, I'm not above the law. I establish justice. And I abide by justice. And I want you to follow justice. And I am your example for justice. God does not breach the law that he created. He doesn't do that. So this concept of fatalism or determinism or compulsion or jabr, this compromises the concept of what? Al-Adl al-Ilahi, the divine justice. And by the way, my friends, 90% of the Muslims today who subscribe to other faiths, they follow in their philosophy, not in their fiqh. In the fiqh, they might follow Hanafi, Hanbali, Shafi'i, or Maliki. This is in jurisprudence. But in philosophy, 90% of them, they follow the Ash'arite tradition. And many of the people, they don't know who's who. They follow a scholar. They don't give themselves a chance. They do not even discuss. They do not debate. They don't have a free debates. They just follow blindly. In the school of Ahl-e-Bait, I said, night first here, the first night, I said, please, 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 people, you have to debate, you have to ask, you have to question. It's not wrong to question anything, anything. Someone went to work in a Muslim country. He had just accepted Islam. So whenever he asks about any question, they tell him, don't ask, follow. Aren't you Muslim? You became Muslim. Submit to God. Why do you ask? He says, no, I'm submitting to God. I'm just asking a question. I want to understand. They say, no, don't. Just follow blindly. Then he came to the Quran and he found a verse in the Quran in chapter number 1, Surah Al-Baqarah, when God was informing the angels that he's about to create Adam. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. The angels who are supposed to strictly listen and obey, they had the freedom of asking God. They said, God, why do you create someone on earth? Someone who creates mischief on earth. قَالُوا أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءَ وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. So he said, God gave a freedom to angels to ask, and those guys in that country, they tell me, don't ask, just follow. This is not the religion of Islam. This is not the school of Ahl-e-Bait. School of Ahl-e-Bait, alayhim as-salam, we have to ask, we have to debate, we have to question, we have to understand. There is no blind following. No blind following. You have to ask. Encourage the young generation. When you don't give them the chance to ask and you shut them off, they leave religion. They go and find somewhere else. When we don't have religious freedom, intellectual freedom, we're going to lose our new generation. So you have to tell them why. Encourage your children to say why. Why? Why we are doing this? Why do we believe in this? What is the difference between this and that? You have to know the difference. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Allah. As a result of this extremism with the Ash'arite, there was another school that came that opposed the Ash'arite as a reaction to them, and they believed in absolute and extreme free will. They argued that what Ash'arites and compulsionists are saying doesn't make sense. Does not make sense at all. God is not going to coerce you against your will. God is not going to take someone who's a good worshipper, good person, would take him to hellfire. He wouldn't do that. So as a result, as a reaction, they believed in complete and absolute free will. What did they say? And those schools are called what? Republican or Democrat? No, Mu'tazilite, and their leader is Amr ibn Ubayd wa Wasil ibn Ata, again in the 3rd century Hijri. So those people, they said, God is going to create us, but after the creation, He has no intervention in our life. He will just throw us into this earth, and He says, listen guys, I've given you books, I'm sending messengers, and I'm leaving you by yourself. That's it. Next time I'm going to meet you is on the Day of Judgment. I'm not going to intervene in your life. Is this good idea or bad? What do you think? Bad idea. Why? Because God is the creator, the sustainer, the cherisher. God is with you. God does not leave you. وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. Wherever you go, 24/7, God is with you. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَنَحْنُ, and we are أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. We are closer to you than your jugular vein. Have you seen a mother, one day, a mother who delivers a baby, and then she throws the baby away and she says to the baby, baby, you take care of yourself, you know. I meet you after 50 years, when you are old, when you are grown. She doesn't do that. She takes care of her baby 24/7. God has a direct involvement in our life. Every single day. Every single day. So what the Mu'tazilites said, they said God does not intervene. But this is wrong. Because this is going to compromise what concept? Which concept? The concept of monotheism, Tawheed. When you say God has no role in my life, He left me alone. He doesn't leave you alone. God is with you. And you need Him every second of your life. God says, لَهُ مَقَالِيدُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. God is in control of heaven and earth. In the first verse that I started this chapter, this lecture, chapter 9, Surah At-Tawbah, verse 51. قُلْ لَنْ يُصِيبَنَا. O Prophet Muhammad, say to your community, قُلْ لَنْ يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. Nothing is going to strike us except what God has decreed for us. Anything that happens in your life is with His permission, with His involvement, with His agreement. He has a direct involvement. Today, parents do not leave their kids alone. Have you seen parents abandoning their kids? They just bring them into this life and they abandon them. What do you say about those parents? The least thing you say, they are irresponsible. They are not good parents, bad parents. So do you think God will bring me into this life and He says, take care of yourself? God says to the prophets, إِنَّنِي مَعَكُمَا أَسْمَعُ وَأَرَى. I am following you. I am with you. I'm not going to leave you alone. So that is the second group, the group of Mu'tazilite. Another extreme, Ash'arites were one form of extreme on the right. Those guys, Mu'tazilites, on the left, another extreme. Both schools do not work. Neither the school that says only God determines your future, nor the school that says only you who determine your future, not God. God leaves you alone. Both are wrong. We come to the school of Ahl-e-Bait alayhi salam. Listen to what Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam says. Imam al-Sadiq says, when it comes to predestination, coercion, or free will, he says, La jabra, there is no absolute coercion by God, no absolute force by God, wala tafweed, nor absolute free will. Walakin, the fact of the matter, walakin amrun bayna amrayn, you are in the middle. Imam al-Sadiq says there is collaboration between you and God when it comes to your life, to events of your life from A to Z. There is coordination, collaboration between you and God. I avoid saying partnership, because if I say partnership, people will say, the Shia, they say God has partners. God has no sharik, no partner. So I avoid that. This is critical. I use instead collaboration, coordination between us and God. We work together. Human beings work in conjunction with God. We both decide our fate. We both decide our journey. Now, does that apply to everything, all instances? No, to many of them. But a few of them, still we have no say over them. Such as what? Such as sickness. Someone is diagnosed with cancer. He gets a treatment, all sorts of treatments, okay? He does dua, prayers, his entire family, his entire community. God wants him to go. For a reason. There is a reason. We might not understand the reason why this person has to go. If you go to chapter 18, Surah Al-Kahf here, there are 3 amazing stories of Musa and Khidr. Khidr would go and slay a person, boy, nice boy, playing with other kids. He slays him. And Musa goes nuts. He starts screaming, "This is a little boy. Why do you kill him?" He says, wait, I will let you know. There is a reason. There is a wisdom in that. You only see the negative side. You don't see the positive side. This life has negative and positive side. Negative and positive. Sometimes we don't see the positive. We see death as negative. Disease as only negative. Poverty as being negative. Loneliness, being alone, having no family, negative. Divorce, negative. Sometimes they are positive. God knows the reason. We don't know the reason. We don't understand it. But in most of our events in our life, most of these events, we work in collaboration with God. Meaning, God is the one who plans for us, but in no isolation from us. God looks at our potentials, our capacity, our worth, our niyyah, your heart, your deed, your worthiness, expediency. This is why we have Laylatul Qadr, the night of destiny. We call it the night of destiny. Because God, during that night, He looks at you. He examines your heart, your intention, your capacity. And He gives you according to your own capacity and according to your credential and according to what you deserve. Whatever you deserve, He's going to give you. It's like a father. I know many fathers, they have lots of money. But when it comes to teach their children, to discipline them, to teach them manner, they don't give the entire money to the kids. They tell them, listen, I have billions of dollars, but I want you to learn this. Because if I give you lots of money, you are not going to appreciate that. You're going to waste this money. So I'm going to give you according to your need. And I know your need. You are my son, you are my daughter. I am going to not let you starve, giving you what you deserve. This is exactly what God does for us. God says, if some people, وَلَوْ بَسَطَ اللَّهُ الرِّزْقَ لِعِبَادِهِ لَبَغَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ. If some people, I give them more than what they deserve, they're going to commit mischief in the land. They're going to be tyrants. They are not going to come here and sit in the majlis. They're going to go to Las Vegas and spend that money there. Story of the man who was with the Prophet, Tha'laba. His story is mentioned in chapter 9. He attends 5 daily prayers in the first line behind the Prophet. One day he said to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, I have nothing. So ask God to give me, I need money. The Prophet said, you have everything. You have a Prophet Muhammad here.
Subhanallah.
But he insisted that I need money. So the Prophet raised his hand, Allahumma rzuq Tha'laba. His name is Tha'lab. Oh God, bestow out of your bounties, your gifts, your wealth on him. He had 1 sheep, it became 2, 3, 4, 5. He used to attend 5 daily prayers. When your business grows, do you still have time to come to the mosque?
No.
Huh? He would skip 1 prayers, 2 prayers, 3 prayers. And then he would skip sometimes the whole day, he doesn't show up. When he comes the following day, the Prophet says, Tha'lab, he says, Ya Rasulullah, business, business is booming, I have to stand there, business, I have family, I have kids. And then he would show up only on Fridays. And then after that, the more money he got, the more his business got bigger, he did not come, he did not show up.
No.
He abandoned the prayers. When the zakat came, God said to the Prophet, go and approach them and receive zakat. خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا. The Prophet sent messengers to him to get the zakat. He said, zakat? He says taxation. Too much taxation, why should I pay? He refused to pay. His story is mentioned in chapter 9. Sometimes God knows why he doesn't give. Don't insist. Always, my friends, in dua, in your dua, always ask, say this sentence. وَلَا حَاجَةً مِنْ حَوَائِجِ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ لَكَ فِيهَا رِضًا وَلِيَ فِيهَا خَيْرٌ وَصَلَاحٌ. Oh Allah, if this need that I am asking you, you are okay with it, you are happy with it, and it is good for me, for my akhirah, make it happen. If not, don't.
MashaAllah.
Don't answer my prayers. In chapter 17, God says sometimes